Government digitization is one of the biggest industries in the world, but to some extent it's a big mess. You have millions of software engineers sitting every day coding exactly the same. Denmark is a very small country, probably spend about $3 billion a year. US governments probably spend a few $100 billion a year on government software. At cBrain, we've done what nobody believes is possible. We have built standard software for government, one of the biggest industries in the world, and we've demonstrated that it's working.
The traditional approach is very much that you spend anything from 6 to 12 months or even longer writing a huge requirements document, and then you go out to a public procurement process, a tendering process, and then eventually you decide on a supplier. So typically by this stage, almost 2 years have passed and no software's been written, nothing's being delivered. And then you start the project. And then you go through a long test phase, integrating with all the other IT systems. And then at the end of it, you'll deploy it to users. From a cBrain perspective, we'd like to kind of try and flip that on its head. The fact that we have a standard piece of software means that our very first kind of minimum viable product implementation of it will meet quite a lot of needs up front. And then we can spend the rest of the time configuring it to meet the specific processes. And the difference in timeframes can be incredible. So at its most extreme, we've gone live with software in a production environment 2 weeks after the first meeting with the customer. But often between 2 and 6 months, that's the average timescale of our projects. And that I think is what's key to cBrain's success, is that not just that we've got a nice product, but actually we can get projects delivered in a short time frame that do what they need to do.
Just a few years back, we acknowledged in the public sector that we needed to change. We said to ourselves, we have to be efficient. We had tried all kinds of software, and every ministry, every municipality was doing different tenders to try to develop the software that they thought were appropriate for them. And everybody had the same idea that they were different. That's been a journey to just accept that we are very, very similar, that we don't have anything odd here. It's actually 99% similar to what they do in another ministry or they do in another municipality. We can now see that almost all the ministries are on the same software. We work exactly the same. So the Ministry for Environment, the Ministry for Taxation, the Ministry for Finance, the Ministry for Business, the Ministry here for Climate, we all work more or less the same. And today we have different kinds of softwares of cBrain, but also other providers who are developing and have developed standard software that we can implement very fast. So after just a few weeks implementation time, you can actually have it up and run. So it has meant that the prices has gone down, much more faster to implement, and the improvements are coming regularly because, of course, we also joined together between the different ministries. So we see the same need to where the software should head. My experience also from traveling around the world also, when it comes to digitalization, all public organizations more or less work the same to maybe 80 to 85 or maybe even to 95%. So why don't we do it in the same way and actually adopt these kind of softwares?
When we started working with the Danish government organization, they told us they were very different. But then we realized they're working exactly the same way. When we started working with the international government, we were told they were very different. But we realized they work exactly the same way and therefore can use standard software. And we have now been able to demonstrate that this works from the Emirates to Germany to UK to the US.
cBrain developed and implemented a solution for the Ministry of Finance, which is economic substandard regulations. This solution is developed and delivered within 4 months during the COVID-19 pandemic. The advantage is that we don't build a solution from scratch, but we have a standard software solution where we can build on that. Being part of this project, we are very proud to be nominated to World Summit on the Information Society Prize in 2021. And it also shows that standard software solution can also be used in other parts of the world. And it also confirming that the governmental entities work the same way. We can see that it's not only in the United Arab Emirates, but it's also spreading in the rest of the region.
Fighting the climate change, that's really driven by government. But the challenge is if they don't have the infrastructure and the programs, they cannot make that happen.
The EPA is the national authority on environmental regulation and also on monitoring of nature and environment. We have about 245 unique administrative processes. This would take years and cost perhaps hundreds of millions of kroners to digitize. So in that way, we had to be creative, and we worked closely together with cBrain in order to find a new method.
We worked with the Environment Agency to have this concept of an overall portfolio pool where we can split between getting the applications in and then allow some kind of portfolio management that says what is the best way that we could allocate the money to get the best benefit for the taxpayer.
Speed of action is especially important when you talk climate interventions for obvious reasons. To give an example, recently the national government decided to make a grant for taking out carbon-rich farmland out of operations. The goal is to reduce CO2 emissions. And with this flexible platform, we actually managed to reduce significantly the time you normally would take from getting a grant to implementing it.
With the best practices and the software we have developed now, we can take that into country after country and really help them jump 10 years and 10 months. In Germany, as an example, we now have 20 people at our office in Berlin just working for one of the largest agencies, helping them to digitize process after process.
And all industries move towards standardization over time. And the reason for doing that is that it's cheaper, it's easier to maintain, it's easier to integrate with other systems. So there are a lot of good reasons for it.
We are operating in a huge industry with huge competitors, but they are still working from a handcraft point of view. So by introducing standard software in a huge handcraft-driven industry, I think we are disrupting something.